Thank you to all of you who joined us on the Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime. We got to a lot of discussion, David Hero, in the week of professional wrestling, but we didn't get to everything. I can't tell you anything. Mrs. Swan, remember? Is the new Mad TV still on?
What?
The new Mad TV. They brought it back. It was on the CW for...
Richard Swan's on Mad TV?
Mad TV, Miss Swan. Okay, I'll tell you anything. He looked like a man.
I never...
You never... Whoa. You didn't watch Mad TV?
No,
you're an SNL guy?
No, I don't watch that.
What are you doing on Saturday nights?
You know.
Take you too long to name names. Mad TV was the better show versus, they really?
No, no.
Stewart. Bonquiqui.
That's racist. Bonquiqui?
Bonquiqui, yeah. Huh. Welcome to King Burger.
Never saw it.
Don't get crazy.
No, never saw it.
Really?
Lorraine. Stewart's the kid from Family Guy, right?
No, yes, but no, not in this case. It was Mad TV. No. Did you ever watch? Did you get the magazines when you were younger? The Mad TV magazines?
The goofy guy on the big carrot top looking dude. No.
Wow. All right. Well, these learnings just continue about your cultural detachment from the world when you were growing up. What did you do?
I did a lot of stuff.
Well, anyways, folks, where was I going to where we got with Mad TV?
Bonquiqui threw me off.
Stuart Bonquiqui, King Burger, security. He gots to go. Podcast. That's what we're previewing. Podcast.
Oh.
Big news. Big news. I didn't give on primetime, David, here. I said I had big news.
Okay. Hot news.
On primetime. Well, it's been an interesting last couple of days, especially yesterday.
Yes.
And while I don't necessarily agree with the decision that 21st Century Fox had to make, because I missed the guilty verdict for Bill O'Reilly.
He wants to retire.
I think he was accused, which means he's innocent until proven guilty.
But he wants to go away. He wants
until
to retire.
this social media bullcrap world of the world.
He's going to Thailand.
No, I think he's going to do a show with the Pope. The real Pope.
D'Angelo De Niro?
No, the real Pope.
That would be awesome.
The Vatican Pope.
In Thailand?
You saw their picture together, didn't you?
No.
Bill O'Reilly, he was over shaking hands with the Pope. But beyond all that,
was it a bro?
As you know, the O'Reilly factor is no more.
Yeah, but it's going to be in Thailand now.
The O'Reilly factor is no more, but I went out and I bought my competition. I now own the name, David Hero.
What, no spin zone?
No. Well, within the factor, yes. But the Nelson factor. It's a new podcast launching next week.
I can only imagine what
I'm going to have talking points. I'm going to have no spin zone. And I'm going to try to book Geraldo Rivera so we can talk about immigrants and drunk driving.
Geraldo? He's world famous here in Wisconsin for the...
World famous here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Because he worked at the KKK Mart rally.
Oh, man almighty. Yes, the Nelson factor, David Hero. I bought the name. Fox doesn't need it anymore because they fired Bill. Yeah. No, they called me and said...
They bought him out.
The public statement, if you read it or listen to it, they have cut ties with Bill O'Reilly. Yeah. They thank him. He thanks them. Blah, blah, bullshit. The only thing that matters is the Nelson factor. It's going to be everything, David. It's going to be a little bit of wrestling. It's going to be a lot less wrestling. It's going to be a little bit of wrestling. It's going to be a lot. And it's me on my own without the distraction of you to talk. I think I'm going to have interactive segments on there as well.
Really?
Yeah, the Nelson factor is going to be interactive with our peeps because I like talking to our peeps out there.
I'm glad somebody does.
It's yet another podcast opportunity from the Pro Wrestling Report, and we're here to talk about the PWR Primetime Extra podcast, David Hero, which cannot be as long as that is, by the way, but a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Roman Reigns. You thought you want your own podcast, don't you? You'd do it once and then lose interest, and it would never take off.
I would lose interest after one time.
Yep. I didn't even mean that. But Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman at Payback. You are convinced that this is too soon. We're going to talk in-depthly why you think this is too soon for Roman Reigns to be making his return after being dang near murdered 2 weeks ago by Braun Strowman. Also, there's been scuttlebutt about whether or not the broken version of Matt Hardy will be coming back to WWE television or coming to WWE television, especially after Jeff Hardy's singles matchup this past Monday night against either Cesaro or Sheamus. I think it was Cesaro. Also, there's talk on two big stars from TNA and Ring of Honor, Maria Kanellis and Mike Bennett, the wrestling power couple, that they may be on their way to WWE. And we're going to finally talk about Drew McIntyre's return
and
to
what about Ken Anderson?
WWE as well. Ken Anderson, we're going to talk about that on Feedback Friday tomorrow. He's back with the National Wrestling Company,
Yes, he
absolutely.
is.
And that's big news for him. Ken Anderson, a guest along with Sean Davari on the Ross Report this week, which is available in podcast form as well. You know, I think since we're talking about podcasts, maybe we'll just make this the weekly podcast preview episode. Maybe it's not just about our podcast, you know, the Nelson Factor, replacing the O'Reilly Factor. I bought the name, thank you. I was hoping they were calling to offer me the job, but my views did not fit in with their views on Fox Primetime. But be that as it may.
No, and you wouldn't. No, you're not a good fit for Fox.
Why do you say that? They've got a couple
You're more
of
on
us.
CNN kind of guy. I can't see you on Fox.
Podcasts. So there's a lot of wrestling podcasts out there, and I tend to listen to quite a few of them. But the Ross Report podcast this week, as you talked about, Ken Anderson and Sean Davari talked about their wrestling school and many more things available on there as well. Definitely worth checking out. But there are a few podcasts I am sure to check out each and every week. The Jim Cornette Experience, which just is always deliciously entertaining from beginning to end. Him and Brian Last, who is a great host, co-host of that show, if you will. Who also does his own podcast, the 605 podcast. I also be sure to check out the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast each and every week as well, which is available. And there's just so many opportunities to fill your drive time with, and I drive quite a bit, unfortunately.
Well, you're always driving
Fill your
somewhere.
drive time with these podcasts. One that has also been uniquely interesting is Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, which I know a lot of you have heard about. I think Bruce is absolutely amazing on that show with his insight, and it's a perspective you never thought you'd see from professional wrestling or hear, because he literally there was no one closer to Vince McMahon during the time he was in WWE than him, and I would say Pat Patterson and Jerry Briscoe. I mean, literally. He knows where
all the bodies are buried.
And he does a great job in blurring that, not blurring the line, if you will, but in answering your questions and then giving stories without giving too much, which I think there's probably some obligations that he needs to meet that he can't reveal too much. But those are some of the podcasts each and every week that I am sure to check out, of course, along with all of our podcasts. You've got Primetime Extra, you've got Feedback Friday, you've got PWR Reaction, which will be live again this Sunday after Payback, and also live on Monday nights and Wednesday. We got brand new shows 5 days a week, including now. I said next Sunday.
You said this Sunday.
I said on Sunday. I didn't say next or this, actually.
You need to be more Pacific with the stuff.
Speaking of which, did they turn those ships around yet? Because I was told they were going one place and they ended up somewhere else.
Yeah, the GPS was off.
No, the liar was off. But also, of course, the Nelson factor. Linda, when Linda and I were talking about this earlier, she was very, very excited about the Nelson. I got the name, David Hero. I got the rights to the blank factor.
I hope you use it.
Well, I'm using it with my podcast that launches next week. Yeah, I am branding it up.
Factor T-shirts?
They've already done all the work.
No spin zones?
Yeah, I'm going to get little tops. You can buy those. It's got the logo on it. You can spin those tops.
They get those in Thailand.
On the table. Those are probably the opposite. But you could spin those tops on. It'll be fun. I'm very excited. Yes, I will get T-shirts. As a matter of fact, I want to make sure all of our peeps out there know one thing that is very important, which is we've been asking you for weeks.
Oh, my God. This is going to be interesting.
We've been asking you for weeks to rate and review our podcasts.
Don't do it.
Because it allows us the opportunity to get out in front of a larger audience and get more people knowing about the joy and gem that you have found that is the Pro Wrestling Report, some 19 years on the air, now delving into the podcast world a little bit deeper, and rate and review. But David Hero,
yes,
if you do that, if you choose and select any one of our 4 podcast feeds and rate and review them, you have the opportunity to win a prize.
I love prizes.
And yes, indeed. Once each individual podcast gets to 100 rates and reviews, meaning you just select the star level. You give him 1 star, you give me 5 stars. So yes, vote twice.
I am a 1-star kind of guy.
And once we get to 100 on each, we're going to select one person from each of the 4 podcasts who has reviewed and rated, and they will win 2 tickets to the next WWE event in their town.
Really?
Absolutely, yes. We want people to make sure that they are giving us accurate feedback on their. We're not saying you have to rate it high. We're not saying you have to rate it low. Just rate it and review it. We want to hear your feedback so that we can make these podcasts the best possible podcast
what if it's
for
one
you.
of our overseas fans? How do you get tickets from over in the UK?
They have this thing. It's brand new. And I know you only use certain facets of it, but it's called the Internet.
Okay.
There are no borders and boundaries with the Internet.
Oh, you'd be surprised what kind of settings there's on there.
I have seen the reports from your office computer, and no, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. Actually.
It's called research.
Yeah, for 7 hours of an 8-hour day.
I'm well versed.
So yes, review, rate, win tickets to a WWE event in your town, ladies and gentlemen. We're not bribing you because we're saying you can rate us, review us, however you want. But we are helping you help us, if you will. And those podcasts, again, Primetime podcasts are all separate. Feedback Friday podcast, PWR Reaction podcast, and also now the Nelson Factor, which launches. I'm going to have guests.
I can't get rated on that one.
No, you can't, which means that one will be that one will have a different rating than the others, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yes, all available on a weekly basis. iTunes, specifically in the podcasts app, you can search for PWR as a podcast. We're on Stitcher Radio, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on everything that anything you use to get your podcasts delivered to your device, and it's free of charge, folks. None of this costs you a dime. The Pro Wrestling Report podcast, just search PWR and then hit the search button in any of those fields, and it will show you our podcasts that are available, so you can take the show with you on the go. So with this preview, which ended up being a newsworthy preview of this week's Primetime Extra
this is
podcast.
a whole new show.
How long have we gone here? We did, and that was unintentional, but we are still, we over-delivered to the audience. That was one of the reasons that Fox, 21st Century Fox, called me and said, hey, we got this name we're not going to use anymore. Do you want it?
Yeah, but they had to do something politically correct.
Are you saying they offered it to me not based on my merit, but based on other attributes I had nothing to do with?
Are you saying the color of your skin? I wasn't going there with it.
No, my shoe size, clearly.
Oh, without a doubt.
My tie selections.
Well, yeah, they need someone to fill O'Reilly's shoes.
Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again tomorrow for Feedback Friday.